Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to All Terrain Manx over on Instagram. Good morning also to Vinieri, purveyors of fine wheel loaders. And buongiorno to Vinieri. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Good morning to Encore Trucking. I'm wearing a bit of a trucker's hat today. I'll get to that in just a moment. Good to be back. It's been a fab couple of days, I've got to be honest. Of course, not being here, seeing your happy, smiling faces, that was tough, but I got to have a nice long chat with Marcus Clay at Digbits, and thank you for the hat, by the way, Marcus. We spoke about a lot of things, but particularly how excavator buckets have been commoditized by being given away free with a new machine. We also spoke about how British really is the best, and how we should be selective about our buckets, as selective about buckets as we are about the machines that we're going to hang them on. Just going back to the thing about giving away buckets for free, which, a lot of manufacturers do, a lot of dealers do. How good do you think the buckets are if they're giving them away? Are you really going to be giving away top-notch buckets, or are you going to give away the cheap, flimsy ones that apparently are made of paper? Good morning to B Selwood 123 over on Instagram. Other people to say hello to. Who have we got here? We've got Jim Turner. We've got Dan Cullen. We've also got Ken Hatcher. Yeah, Ken Hatcher. Any JCB creme brulee? Yes, there was creme brulee aplenty, and you'll be delighted. I don't know if anybody from JCB is watching this, and in particular, I don't know if the chef at JCB is watching, but for the love of God, never ever change the recipe. If I went to JCB and either the creme brulee wasn't on the menu or they changed I'd stop going. I love JCB with a passion. I love all the people there. They're fantastic. They're fantastic hosts, but please never change the creme brulee. Jim Turner says, I bet it was bloody great, and I really do appreciate all your help. Not a problem at all, Jim. Yeah, you'll see in just a moment. The only downside, and I have to say, I feel more sorry for JCB than I do for myself. While we were there, we were up in the Kevin Quarry, and the mist descended. You'll see. It looks like I've set it up for Halloween when you see what we filmed there. But yeah, absolutely fantastic couple of days. We're going to show you more about that in just a moment. And by the way, just before, I realise Staffordshire and Derbyshire are different places, but, they're side by side or thereabouts. In case you're not aware, the dates for the next Hillhead show have been announced. The show will take place, usual venue, from the 23rd to the 25th of June, 2026. Assuming we're all still doing our thing by then, I'll be there. I hope to see you there as well. Dan Cullen says, love the hat. Yeah, very, very fine hat. I've got Marcus Clay at Digbits sent me a kind of a woolly thermal winter hat a couple of years ago. Still my go-to for cold weather fishing and walking the dogs. But I went to see him, and he gave me this one, which I think is a damn fine specimen. I'm really quite pleased with that. It suits the look. And by the way, Grey and Black and Earth Movers, thank you for the compliments on the beard. Magnificent, I think you described it as. And Chris Ford is here as well. Morning, Chris. Morning, compatriots, he says. Yes, good morning to you, Chris. We've got lots and lots to get through today. So without further ado, let me tuck that away. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is. Okay. I'm sorry, just saw one of the comments there. It is Thursday, the 17th of October. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, we are paying a flying visit, quite literally, to JCB's misty Kevin Quarry. We're in Australia to witness another step on mining's path to zero emissions. Komatsu's power agnostic truck goes to work, and what customers have to say about Volvo's brand new R60 rigid hauler. We're going to get to all of that in just a moment. Plus, in today's episode of Mark's Morning Monologue, we're going to be discussing site and project management on UK demolition and construction sites, and how all too often the experienced are led by the inexperienced. Stand by for that. But before we get to all of that, we have the small matter of our mystery machine to attend to. So let me get that up right about now. Yep, Dan Cullen is still in the lead on the mystery machine. Can he extend that lead today? We shall see. Here's what you're working with, people. There you are. That's a piece of cab, I would guess. That is a piece of cab. If anybody's got any clues on what machine, make and model that belongs to, I'd love to hear from you. While you're trying to figure that out, we'll crack on. I'm going to take that off the screen because I do want to remind you very, very quickly of our question of the day, which looks a bit like this. Yeah. This morning's question of the day really is a very, very straightforward one. It is. What is your favourite smell? Now, personally, I have a ton. Fresh cut grass, petrol, freshly laid tarmac, freshly baked bread, lavender, roasted coffee, and the smell of garlic and seafood from an Italian restaurant, ideally in Italy itself. All among my favourites, but I'd love to have your thoughts on that. Ken Hatcher is going for new car smell. He also typed the word bits. I'm not entirely sure whether the bits refers to something that he likes the smell of, or whether he was correcting my grammar when I was talking about dig bits. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to move on. Dan Cullen says, for repeat business, I'd give a free bucket. Yes, I'm sure you would. But here is the point that we discussed at some length, and we will show that to you at some point. And by the way, B. Selwood, 123 over on Instagram, has said coal tar is a favourite smell. Coal tar soap. Oh, man alive, that's a good whiff. There are two things. There are two things in my bathroom that I can't live without. Coal tar soap and euthymal toothpaste. Without either of those, I don't feel properly clean. But coal tar, absolutely. Yes, we have a situation now with mini excavators, mini, and major excavators where you kind of expect to get a free bucket or more than one free bucket into the bargain. Now, obviously, equipment manufacturers and equipment dealers are working to margins. So if they are going to give you a free bucket that is real top of the notch, the elite of the bucket world, that's coming off their bottom line, unless they can secrete the cost of it into the cost of the machine. Unfortunately, what they're actually doing, as it would appear to me, is that they are buying their buckets as cheap as is humanly possible. And if you do that, you get what you pay for. So that's the part of the deal. So another thing as well, we talked a lot about buying British, and I don't want to sound xenophobic. I'm happily dealing with Japanese and Chinese and Korean companies all the time. Don't have a problem with that. And I think they make some fantastic machines as well. But if you're buying a bucket, would it not be quite nice to be able to specify it to your own specifications, specific width, for example, or a specific set of wear package on it, so you could do that, so you can have it custom made? But would you also not like the reassurance of being able to phone up and saying, I need some new teeth that fit perfectly that I can have tomorrow afternoon, rather than 3 weeks' time when they've been shipped through the Suez Canal? Would that not be a good idea? As I say, I'm not being racist. I'm not being xenophobic. I'm not being patriotic in any way, shape, or form. I'm just talking practicality. If you could buy a British bucket made to British standards, for which you knew you could get parts in the future or get it repaired or refurbished, surely that makes sense. Or is that just me? I don't know. Jim Turner on to favourite smells. Cherry and vanilla back. Oh, I do. I've literally never smoked a cigarette in my life, never smoked a pipe, never smoked a cigar, never done none of those things. but I used to work with an editor of a magazine who smoked a pipe, and he used a very, very sweet pipe tobacco. Love the smell of that. Sticky haylage, dry silage, because that smells a bit like baccy too. Does it? Does it really? Let's have a look. Mystery machine. Let's go on to the mystery machine. Dan Cullen reckons that our mystery machine could be a JCB 3C Mark II. It is not. I can tell you that, and I'm going to show you a bit more. That is a bit of a clue. Let me take that off the screen. Ken Hatcher says, I don't think it's coal tar in soap anymore, unfortunately. It's just something that smells like it. It does. I do remember when I was younger, it was my dad's soap of choice. I think that's where I got into it. And I do remember it smelling a lot stronger. I mean, to the point of kind of clearing your nostrils. I can't remember that. It doesn't seem to do that anymore. But I have to admit, I mean, I don't do a particularly strenuous job. I promise I shower every morning before the show. And I'm not just winding you up here. I do shower every morning. And sometimes, you reach for something and you get that waft of coal tar soap. It's kind of reassuring. I quite like that. Dan Cullen says, is our mystery machine a Hymac backhoe loader? It is not. Mick Norton has got a long thing to say, and I'm going to read it for you now. This week, many caring bespoke training providers are having their time taken up. Let me just remove that from the background. Time taken up completely by CPCS competency interviews as the industry accreditation 31st December 2024 deadline draws closer. Unbelievably, some providers are refusing to accommodate plant operators for an interview as there's no money in it. Some are openly duping would-be card holders into doing an NVQ L2 or level 2, which is more lucrative. Operators should double-check their card requirements as there's rogues about. Rogues in the construction industry? Surely not. Surely not. But yes, people beware. If you are about to sit yourself an NVQ level 2 to make sure your card still carries some weight, sort of, in the early in the new year, then you need to look at that. Steel Wrist Official just joined us over on Instagram. Always a pleasure, you fine folks. I'm going to be up in your part of the world in the near future. I'm coming to Sweden. I say I'm up in your part of the world. I'm going to Eskilstuna, which is probably nowhere near Steel Wrist whatsoever, but I am going to be in Sweden. Favourite smell? Freshly cut silage. There's many votes for silage around the place. Go back to the mystery machine. Who have we got here? Jim Turner reckons it could be a JCB3. It's not. Chris Ford reckons it could be a Wittig 305. It's not. Maybe JCB should make a nice soap. They do. Yeah. If you stay at the lodges of the Golf and Country Club, there is a full range of shampoos and body lotions and hair conditioners and soap, all of which are lavenderish. And they also do a lavender spray for your pillow to help you sleep at night. And it's all from the Bamford estate. So JCB is in the soap. Wow. That's stretching a point. JCB itself is not in the soap business, but the Bamford family most certainly is. Whitlock 305, no, it's not one of those. Dan Cullen said, let me remove that for a second. Mick, this CPD course is now a farce, 28 quid and £28 for HSE. And the Knockin website is badly explained. I wonder if that's deliberate. What do we got here? Mick Norton says, question of the day, my late dad's battered baccy tin with its mix of Old Holborn, Erin Moore and Shag tobaccos. My dad was an Old Holborn man. I could tell you, I could spot that smell a mile off. It was kind of the scent of my youth. And do you remember, I realise it's only October, but do you remember the smell of your house in the run-up to Christmas? Or I say the run-up, the run-up and during Christmas. My house when I was a kid always smelled of tangerines or satsumas and Brute aftershave. Does anyone remember that? Or was that just me? Don't know. All right, let's have a look. We've got another vote for a JCB machine. Dan Cullen is going for the JCB 3C. It is not. Chris Ford is going for the International 2275. Nope. Ken Hatcher back on the subject of cards. Yeah, and £150 for a competence interview. Don't get me started. I've come back from JCB feeling, and Dig Bits, I've come back feeling very happy. Don't get me angry. I could. Dan Cullen says, loved old Holborn. Dad only smoked that too. Well, maybe it's a dad thing. Having said that, I'm a dad multiple times. I never did. Right, Mystery Machine. Here we go. There's a little bit more there. Now, I know a few people have guessed JCB. I think the presence of a red bucket might confirm your suspicions, but nobody's got the right model yet. So please, please, please keep the guesses coming. Jim Turner reckons it could be iDreamer. I think he probably said that before I announced the fact that it had a red bucket. Our friend Mick is in the house. Morning, Mick. Good of you to join us. Now, we are going to crack on with the show now because I've got lots to show you, including my trip to JCB, which will be right after this. So, a couple of things before I show you this. First of all, look out for the weather, because, the Kevin Quarry yesterday was kind of like the set of the Alien movie. It was great fun. And I, as I say, I do feel for JCB. You put all that time and all that effort into assembling the international press, and the mist descends. Never mind all that. But you remember before I went to Las Vegas, I was talking about the concept of having a drone that would follow me about the place and basically be my own private cameraman. Finally got to give it a proper outing yesterday. And this is the result. Right, we're here at the Kevin Quarry, the JCB demonstration area. As you can see over here, we've seen this machine before. That's the 370X. But over here is something brand new. Come and have a look. When we first saw that at Hillhead, that's the JCB 145X XR, the reduced tail swing, which if you have a look over here, you can see the reduced tail swing on that machine. Fantastic looking machine. 14 ton reduced tail swing. Head over this way. There you go, closer look at the 145 XR. Just completing the lineup, 220X. But if we head up here, more new to see. This is part of an international press day, so excuse the people in the background, they're all journalists from around Europe. So head on up here. As you can see, we've got a lot of low cloud today, quite a lot of mist. But you can see over here, the JCB 457. There's something new about this. This machine is now fitted with IntelliWeigh, which is an onboard weighing system. So saving production, saving fuel, and that kind of thing. But very, very smart machine, I think you'll agree. Now, can I get out of here? No, we'll go back this way. Obviously, if you watch the show often enough, you'll be familiar with the electric wheel loaders from JCB. Here's 3 of them, all lined up. That mist is really closing in now, but let's head on over here. We're at the telehandler display area now. There's a rotary machine over in the distance which you may not be able to see because of the mist, but behind me, the 540-140. And this machine is actually fitted with IntelliSense. IntelliSense is like a pedestrian detection system. Surrounds the machine. They've got an inner circle and an outer circle to it. So if somebody encroaches, the driver gets a warning, they get a warning. But if they encroach completely, the machine is put into shutdown mode. Fantastic system, a real contribution to site safety. And there you are. That's what a self-flying drone can do. Awesome, right? I think that's great. I loved it. Thank you very much indeed for I'm just going to refresh Twitch because that's playing silly buggers at the moment. Yes, going to say quick, let's have a look. There we are. That's from Dan Cullen. Wow, great video. Yeah, I have to say, I wasn't sure exactly what I was getting myself into yesterday because you can't see what you're filming. You can on a camera, obviously, but you can't with that. So I basically filmed it, looked at it and thought, well, actually, that's not bad at all. What have we got? We've got more guesses. Let me do this one first. The question of the day is, what is your favourite smell? The smell of my kids, the smell of all my kids the day they were born. Yeah, kids do smell good, don't they? Well, initially. When they get a bit older, they stink to high heaven, but you're absolutely right. Had to turn the news off. I'm sick and tired of hearing about the young fella dying ultimately by his own misuse of drugs. Yeah, that's Liam Payne from One Direction, I assume you're talking about. I've got to be honest. It flashed up on the news last night and it was talking about Liam Payne. I didn't know who the bloody hell he was. It was only when I sort of watched it a little bit more. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it was something that passed me by. But it does sound like he was a pretty troubled young fella. And 31, that's no age at all. So absolutely. Dan Cullen says, was that drone following you or was Fred operating the drone? Fred was operating a drone, but not that one. That one, you basically hold it in your hand, it scans your body, and but it basically takes off from your hand and it will follow you about the place. So, and there's different modes. So as you saw at the end of there, I can send it off and it will fly off on its own. But it will also, there's a follow, which means it will follow behind me. So wherever I go, it follows behind. But there's another one, which is called direction track, I think. And you take it off and it will stay the same distance in front of you. So you can walk towards it and it will back up as you're walking about the place. Honestly, I mean, I bought it for that very reason, but having seen it properly in action now, just astounded. Want to go back? I can tell you that somebody has actually got the mystery machine today, but I'm going to go back to that in just a bit. A couple of things. First of all, I'd like to say a massive thank you to all of the JCB team for their usual help and hospitality. A superb host as usual. You can have many, many arguments about who makes the best equipment in the country or in the world. But I tell you what, there's not many people that can hold a candle to JCB in terms of hospitality. So thank you to them. When I was showing off the wheel loader, the 457, I mentioned the IntelliWay system, which they've got now, which is an onboard payload indicator or payload measuring system. I completely forgot to mention the fact that machine was equipped with lever steer. You know, stick steer, much the same as Caterpillar have got. It's now a factory fit option. So if you want lever steer on your wheel loader, superb. Now, secondly, to ensure that you now get the full picture on both the JCB 145XR and the IntelliSense system, probably more so the IntelliSense system, we actually produced a couple of podcast style videos, which you can view and listen to over on our YouTube channel as of this morning. The IntelliSense system is based on a set of technologies which is called a human form recognition technology. Balfour Beatty have already said that they are going to mandate it on their sites up and down the land. So JCB's timing obviously is superb. We're not quite as on the ball as that, but we will be bringing you a podcast specifically on that technology very, very soon, because it does seem that human form recognition technology is yet another acronym we'll all need to understand. One of the interesting aspects of this, and good morning to Mark Whiting, who's just joined us. I'm going to do, let's have a look. There we go. There you are. One of the interesting aspects of that human form recognition technology is that the system logs near-miss events, and they can be presented as a heat map of accident trouble spots on a site. So if there is a repeated near misses in a particular area or during a particular operation, that system will log it. Now, obviously at site level, that might inform role-specific training, or it could drive a change in the layout of the site, move men over there and machines over there and all of that kind of thing. Where it's an even bigger winner, and as I say, JCB are not the first to harness this human form recognition. I think Spillard have got a system. I think, who else did I see had? It doesn't matter. Go have a look. Human form recognition. But where I think this is an even bigger winner is the fact that this information is stored and studied by JCB's LiveLink system. So imagine if there was a major customer, or even JCB itself were to interrogate all of that data to identify potential accident hotspots. You could actually identify accident hotspots before a site even started work. It's literally Minority Report level foresight. So imagine from on a house building site, where maybe there is an intersection between men and machines. There's a point where the two come together, and that's identified over one site, 10 sites, 1,000 sites around the world as a potential accident black spot. Design around it. Just design around it. Why would you not? Makes perfect sense to me. Let's have a look. I'd like to get a Digbits hat if he can spare one. I'll have a word. I will have a word. Let me think. I think they may well be at Plantworks next year. But let me have a word. See what I can do. There is Mark Whiting saying good morning. Mick Dalton says, great pity JCB haven't enhanced the warnings of foreseeable risk to the operator on when they are entering an area of lateral instability. I wonder if that's another thing for AI to do. I know we do have a nasty habit of basically giving responsibility to AI, but AI would, AI linked to a sensor that is actually monitoring that lateral stability or instability to trigger a warning. Interestingly, I got to have a bit of a play with the 370X, and more specifically the UX system, the in-cab system, and we were looking at the camera, the sort of 360-degree camera, and very, very good it is too, and it alerts you when people are too close, and so on down the line. Oh, absolutely fantastic. One of the weird things, and I think maybe it came to mind because the Kevin Quarry yesterday was looking very spooky with all the mist. When somebody moves from one camera to another, the system is set so that they fade out of one camera and then fade into another one. So it almost looks like you're surrounded by ghosts. I had enormous fun with that. Let's have a look. What do we got here? I'd really like to get a day at JCB. Anyone willing to join and organise for me a day out? I mentioned this to Jim. Too late to apply for it now, but there is actually going to be an open day for ground workers in a couple of weeks' time. I think they've got about 100 ground workers going up there at the same time. And yeah, part of it is to show them all the new kit and to get their feedback on it. And one of the things... Now, we're all friends together here, so I can be entirely honest. When I got there on Tuesday, and we went into the JCB theatre, and the curtain went up, and there was the JCB 145 XR. I've got to be honest, I was a little disappointed. Not disappointed in the machine, because it looks bloody excellent. But I was sat there thinking, I've seen that. I saw that at Hillhead. Well, in actual fact, once I checked, I can tell you, not only did I see it at Hillhead, me and Jim Turner stood and had a chat right beside it while Fred was off filming it. So it was definitely there. One of the things that struck me about that, though, I actually mentioned that to one of the guys, in fact, the guy that we'd interviewed about the 145 XR. You know that the thing that I know Jim says this a lot about getting the feedback from customers and getting feedback from operators. The reason that they showed it again was because post Hillhead, they had comments on various bits and pieces, fairly low-level bits and pieces, but from operators and owners and stuff. They went back to the drawing board and they've changed those things. So the iteration that I saw yesterday is, in a few areas, different to the one that was at Hillhead. Because JCB have listened, hats off. They've listened to the feedback and gone, oh, yeah, actually, we could tweak that or do that. So they've actually done that. So these open days... if you can get on them, it is your opportunity not just to go and have a play with the machines, which is enormous bloody fun, but you could even influence the design of a machine as well. So Mick Norton says, my comment applies to JCB telehandlers. I'd already put two and two together on that. Dan Cullen says, I'd be up for that. Yeah, well, as I say, these things are going on all the time. I mean, I always get the impression that the press are used as a bit of a like the canary down the mine. They show us stuff, and then if none of us fall over laughing, they then show it to the rest of the world. Are we going to fall over laughing? Of course we're not. And I have to say, despite my initial skepticism about the 145, the reduced tail swing is absolutely superb, and some of the other tech, IntelliWay, IntelliSense as well. They're new. They've got their biggest rotating telehandler, which you couldn't see in the mist. And once they put the boom up, you couldn't see the top of the bloody thing anyway. But some really fantastic stuff. So, yeah. Mick Norton says, well done, JCB, for listening to the feedback. Indeed. Jim Turner says, I voiced a few concerns at Hillhead. I wonder what the differences are. They weren't being specific. They weren't being specific, but they were. In fairness, they actually said, "Yeah, hands up." We had done a few things, and a few operators went, "Yeah." And it's a hard job. I am going to press on the show in a moment. It's a hard job. If you think of, I actually said this to one of the JCB guys. If you think about a machine, every operator will have his own specific needs and requirements. Every application will have its own specific needs and requirements. Every owner or customer will have their. You can't. I mean, literally, you can't please all the people all the time. But by listening and I wouldn't say they necessarily pushed back the launch, but it was Hillhead was June. It's now October. So in that 3 months, they've actually, 3 or 4 months, they've actually gone back to not quite the drawing board, but they've gone back and said, okay, we can tweak this and we can tweak that. Footy says, I should imagine the steps were the same on the side of the machine. They were the same, although I have to say, I was in and out of the 370X a couple of times yesterday. Piece of cake. Really was a piece of cake. Bearing in mind, I'm knocking on the door of 60 years old. I'm not the man I once was. Not a problem at all. They had thought it through. I did notice today on LinkedIn, though, there's a company called TLS Engineering who have just delivered a Volvo excavator with a detachable, a retracting ladder. If you have a look for TLS Engineering over on LinkedIn, you'll have a look for them online. You'll be able to find them. So, should we crack on? I think we probably should. Oh no, I do need to tell you, we have a winner. We have a winner on the Mystery Machine, and that winner, no great surprise to anyone, is Dan Cullen. That, in fact, is a JCB 4L. Have to say, the aesthetics of the JCB equipment has improved somewhat over the years. You could genuinely make that one from Lego bricks. It's all very, very straight edges. But yeah, well done, Dan. I'm going to put the let's have a look. DC 3 points. Congratulations, Dan. Once again, you do know your kit, my friend. You really do. Where are we? Yeah, let me take that away. I'm going to press this button here, and then I'm going to show you something else.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Mick Norton says a specific JCB may have varying applications across the different sectors. Impossible to please all. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when you think about, the base requirements of, for example, an excavator. Is it going to be in house building? Is it going to be in road building? Is it going to be in demolition? Is it going to be in quarrying? All of those will have their own foibles and quirks and peccadillos. I don't think I've ever actually said peccadillos on screen before, but yeah, they will all have their individual requirements, and none of them will match. None of them will match. I guess that plays into the notion that Jim Turner spouts about quite a lot, the idea of a modular machine. He is the base. He is, And incidentally, Jim, while I was talking to the guy about the 370X and the 145XR, I did touch on your notion of being able to buy a stripped-down machine. And obviously, we know that there are parts of the world where regulations are different. And so, there are still machines without ROPS and FOPS, and there's machines with engines that wouldn't necessarily satisfy the European regulations or American regulations. Apparently, those are, they are there. They are there. Now, whether you'd be able to buy one here, not entirely sure. But yeah, let's have a look. Really need an ear trumpet. Thought I heard pick a dildo. Yes, I definitely said pick a dildo. I should have said that. Yes, no, peccadillo, foibles, quirks. That's good. Yeah. Now, when I came back from, where did I come back from? Las Vegas. Yes, we were talking a lot about the T264 dump truck. battery electric, autonomous, and everything else that is going to Fortescue mining. But they're not just electrifying their haulers; they are electrifying pretty much everything. And we've got a bit of a longer film. This one's about 6 minutes, but it's down under. It looks lovely. The machine is fantastic. Get your eyeballs around this.
The R9400E is an amazing machine. We're loving operating it here. It's such a beast of what it can do and a huge part of the Fortescue decarbonisation journey. Today we're in the Pilbara at Solomon mine site for Fortescue. This is one of the biggest Pilbara operating sites with over 180 pieces of equipment moving around 200 million tonnes every year. Fortescue has a vision to be fully decarbonised by 2030. Currently on track with that, and that means that all of our sites are transitioning to equipment which is going to be basically zero emission, either electric machines or battery electric machines being delivered across our site. The company went on an assessment of what mobile equipment is out in the industry and how can we achieve that, assessing all of our OEM partners. The company selected Liebherr due to the fantastic partnership we've got through them and the openness to innovation that we've got. Here, the 9400E is the first delivered 9400E operating in the Pilbara. We've been able to achieve that through the partnership that we've got with Liebherr.
Obviously it's the first for Liebherr in Australia as well for the electric product. It's exciting. There's definitely a lot happening in the future. There's some big milestones to meet. The excitement for the Liebherr side, I'm sure, is at the same level as what it is for Fortescue.
It's been performing really well. The ease compared to the diesel machines, the task was to have them be equal, and they were equal, which is fantastic. So we now have a viable solution for our decarb journey with working with Liebherr and in our partnership.
What we're seeing at the moment from the electric machines is that they're exceeding the performance of our diesel equivalents. When we first commissioned the 9400Es across the site, there were a few naysayers around what the machines can do and what the machines can't do. There was comments on reliability, there was comments on how many tonnes they could dig per year. We've blown all of those out the water. They're doing just as much as our diesel equivalents would do and getting great performance from them. So it's amazing to be working with these machines. Our diesel consumption has reduced massively. Previously on a diesel machine we would have to stop to refuel once every 24 hours. We've now shifted that 24-hour stoppage to once every 48 hours, and that's purely for greasing and equipment inspections. Reliability-wise, we're seeing less failures purely from the smoothness and operating of the electric machine. It doesn't have all the moving components that a diesel machine would. As a result, we're getting much longer life out of the machine and it's lasting longer.
Probably the biggest improvement is on breakout force. So when the machine's actually digging, we don't get the bogging down that we did do with our diesel machines, which means all of the major components' lives are now extended. So we now, from a safety perspective, we now don't have to replace very big, very heavy parts as frequently.
The 9400E machines are currently plugged into a HV cable running off the power station which is located off our site.
Probably the most unique feature about these new 9400Es is the cable reeler. It was a very, very interesting solution and very innovative solution to how do we manage cable. So a lot of other mines and a lot of other sort of electric solutions have a stinger out the back, which is just a fixed cable point. It's been very successful having the cable reeler and being able to have, you know, approximately 300 metres worth of free cable that you can spool up and unspool so that the digger can dig more freely.
The operators love using the 9400Es and operating them. They provide a smooth ride to the operators and they're feeling pretty good at the end of the shifts.
The very first shift that we had, the operator got out of the machine and said, "That's it, I'm never going in a diesel machine again. I'm now officially only an electric operator," so they can't wait to get more electric diggers so that they've got more machines to be able to utilise. Liebherr have been supportive throughout the whole project. We've already had a very good relationship with them, with our significant number of Liebherr fleet on site.
One of the big things we're noticing from Liebherr on this journey to decarbonisation is the assistance and the openness to share technical, share innovation and share support out in the field. The innovation side's been huge, with Liebherr open to partnering with Fortescue with a few of the products and components that we're able to develop and offer internally. We weren't able to see that from other equipment manufacturers, so it's been great to have Liebherr on that journey with us.
It's very refreshing to be able to work with an OEM that actually wants to work with you as well and makes you feel like a heard customer. We've actually had the factory come out, which I've never experienced before with any other OEM. That's really exciting.
Some of the support services that Liebherr offer for Fortescue, we have the embedded site-based labour that we have on all Fortescue sites. On top of that, we have our field service department, which are not only for ad hoc support but also for planned maintenance. And then outside of that, we also have our Perth workshop facility, which is basically the hub for our modular exchange program that works in with our field service team, and also our fabrication department.
This program and this challenge being so successful, it's enabled us to be able to confidently move forward. So we now know that we can electrify our digger fleet, which was probably one of the largest and most critical fleets to be able to electrify. We now know that we can dig at the same productivity as our diesel machines.
For Fortescue, it's massive, the scale and the amount of machines that are coming across the whole Pilbara. Really looking forward to it. There's massive opportunity for Fortescue, there's massive opportunity for Liebherr, and I think together, working, the teams are going to accomplish something big.
Yeah, the revolution is underway and it will be televised. Excuse me a sec. Mick says, still not a big fan of having a bloody great power cable trailing behind. Again, there is battery electric on its way, so that may not be a problem for much longer. Mick Norton says, I must admit the Liebherr electric 9400E 360s, greater breakout force than the diesel equivalents. Yeah, absolutely. Dan Cullen says, it's all fine and dandy going electric, but what about supply and demand on power plants? Because these are mines, I mean, that's part of what Fortescue have got in mind, is actually generating their own power through a variety of means, including possibly solar and that kind of thing. They quite possibly will be generating their own power. Won't be a problem. They'll be self-sufficient. Craig over at CSW says, love the hat. Well, I love the hat. I love the hat too, but I also loved your video. If nobody's seen it, go and have a look. I have to say, Craig, you suckered me in with your title. You really did. I can't remember exactly, but the title was something along the lines of, I don't want to dig with this bucket. And I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. Why would you not want to dig with a bucket? Is it really crap? Turns out it was so good that he didn't want to spoil it. Go and have a look. It's a very good video. Well done on that. Really enjoyed it. Not wanting to be a party pooper, but electric excavators working in quarries and mines for over 80 years. Yes, they are. But really, there's a big difference, and every iteration. I mean, you know, when you think about the iterations and the changes and the evolution that we've seen with diesel to tier 3, 4, 5, and ultimately going away entirely, all of that and more has been taking place in the electric machines as well. Mick Norton says, when you look at the Aussie operations, us Brits are only skirting the edges with machine operation. Yeah, we are indeed. Funnily enough, the article, well, it was an article and it was also a monologue that I did about the health issues of construction and demolition workers. You know, poor diet, excessive caffeine, smoking, drinking and all that really, really, really hit a nerve. I think it's probably been viewed about 5,000 times now, and loads of comments. And one of the most common comments is about looking to particularly the Australian mine setup, where they actually set up effectively a mini town around a mine, and the fact that the operators that work there, or the people that work there, but the operators especially, are so well cared for. They are fed and watered and hydrated, and they're looked after properly, because it's a simple set of maths. You take care of your operators will take care of you, because they won't be taking sick time because of poor diet or anything else. They will be there all the time. Honestly, go and have a look if you haven't seen that. And Craic says the title of the video, again, I hats off to you. I think it's very, very good. Do you expect me to dig with that? As I say, suckered me in, because I recognised the bucket and I thought, that's a bit harsh. I thought Dig Bits made some bloody good buckets. Well, it turns out that is precisely what he meant. They do make some bloody good buckets, to the point where he was questioning whether it was wise to actually use it for a job of work or to put it on his mantle, near the big mantelpiece. And there he is. And what a bucket it is. I think the one thing, Marcus Clay, when I was talking to him, I actually mentioned your video, and he said that the only difference between that and a regular bucket was, I think it had been lacquered rather than painted, just to show off the quality. And I've got to be honest, I quite like that. I know, what's the name of the company? Is it PowerFab, the Scottish company that do the kind of steampunk style buckets up in Scotland? Fairly sure it's PowerFab. Look fantastic. Fantastic. Jim Turner, yep, nothing new at all. Is it? No, it's not, but it's iterations and improvements and evolution. That's what it is. Right, let me get back to the main gist of all of this, because I do have a morning monologue for you today. Going to upset the apple cart again, because that's what I do. But we'll be back in a moment with Komatsu. Speaking of machine evolution, one of the things that I saw while I was over in Las Vegas at the Mine Expo show was what Komatsu described as a power agnostic dump truck, rigid hauler. And it currently sits there looking magnificent with a Cummins diesel engine in it. But if in the next 6 months, 6 years, somebody comes along with a battery version of it, you can literally pop out the engine and pop in the battery electric. If a couple of years after that somebody says we're ready to go with hydrogen, you can pop the batteries out and you can pop the hydrogen system in. Very, very good. I saw it static, looked impressive. Looks even better out on site. Yeah, very smart. Very smart. Now, we still have question marks about all things electric. One of them is this. Mick says, going off cue here, but involves lithium batteries and catalytic catalytic converters. Me and the Hound are in the yard tonight as we heave a couple of containers going out. One of batteries and the other of converters. While the batteries are being loaded, there is a fire engine on site just in case. So another cost to get shot of the bloody things. Yep. Yeah, that whole notion of thermal runaway is a major consideration, and I can thank you for that, Craig. I knew it didn't sound. Do you know it didn't sound right in my head when I was saying power fab? I'm fairly sure power fab was a mini excavator back in the day. It didn't sound right in my head. Thank you for correcting me. It is Eurofab. Eurofab. If you haven't seen a Eurofab bucket, love one in the back garden. You know, all. I don't even know what that effect is, but it does look steampunky, kind of. I don't know what they do to them, but they look bloody excellent. I'm going to be right back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
We've just seen a sexy new dump truck from one of the best manufacturers in the world. And I'm about to show you another fantastic dump truck from one of the best manufacturers in the world. This time, Volvo.
Unbelievable truck, smooth, the power's there, the braking system is unbelievable.
A lot of power. The power up the small hills that we did climb was impressive. Very smooth operating machine.
The smoothness of the truck itself, the ride's unbelievable.
First thing that I was impressed with was the comfort of the cab.
The cab was extremely comfortable.
And the steering was very maneuverable.
The turning radius was phenomenal. Turns on a dime. Overall, just a really good experience.
I look forward to driving one in a real application.
Make a lot of operators happy.
I've driven the R100 and it's fantastic. I can only imagine that is equally good. Mick says PowerFab were similar to the old Smalley vehicle towed backhoes. And that worries me. That worries me. You know, when I don't know if you've ever had a family member suffering with early onset dementia or Alzheimer's, how they seem to remember stuff from way, way back when, but they can't remember whether they've eaten their lunch today. How did PowerFab just pop into my head when I was clutching for, is this the beginning? Is this the beginning of the end? I mean, I don't make a lot of sense most of the time, but I'm starting to get worried now. Right, okay, it is that time. It is that time. I'm going to roll the end of show stinger in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over to do my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you going very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return forthwith, henceforth, and immediately after this. Do you want to tidy up the chat before we get into the morning monologue? Jim Turner says, whether it's machines, houses, or whatever, modular and interchangeable design is the best approach for repair, updating, longevity, and large-scale efficient manufacturing. Totally agree. Totally agree. And Mick says, I forgot to add, the batteries will be under escort, so even more cost. Are they really a good idea? I don't know. Now, speaking of things that may or may not be a good idea, I want to talk about demolition and construction management. So, and I'm trying to take this slowly because I'd like to do it in one take if I possibly can. So, leadership in the demolition and construction industry, where the blind lead the sighted and the inexperienced academic brain directs the calloused hands of experience. Isn't it remarkable? We've got an army of managers who couldn't tell the difference between a dozer and a dump truck, but are somehow in charge of multi-million-pound projects. You know, the kind of people who could give you a TED talk on leveraging synergies in structural deconstruction while completely failing to identify which end of a bucket is up. I'm talking about the folks who've read every book, passed every course, polished their CVs to a high gloss, but have never actually set foot on a construction site until their first day as a project manager. These are the academic prodigies, the one with enough diplomas to wallpaper a decent-sized office, but with a complete lack of practical knowledge, and in many cases, common sense. They know what the textbook says about structures, soil, or safety, but ask them to actually do something. Ask them to dig a trench, wire a building, or demolish a condemned warehouse. They'll stare at you like you've just spoken a long-dead language. But hey, they've got theory on their side. They'll insist that the best way to do something is what the best practice guide says, and they'll wield that guide like it's the Holy Bible. Never mind that the workers on site, the people that have been doing it for decades, might have an idea or two about what actually works. Oh, no. Those workers, they're just the ones with the dirt under their nails and steel toe-cap boots. What could they possibly know about demolition compared to somebody who's got an MBA in project oversight? Let's talk about promotions. Let's not forget about supervisors. Yeah, the ones who get promoted because they were stellar workers. Stellar being the key word here. You've got a guy who could operate an excavator in his sleep, a true artist. But the moment you slap the title supervisor on his hard hat, it's as if all common sense evaporates. He was great at his job, so naturally, we assume he'll be great at managing other people doing their jobs. It's like assuming a star football player will automatically become a great coach. Just because someone knows how to take down a building brick by brick doesn't mean they understand how to manage a team of diverse personalities, egos, and skill levels. But hey, who needs management skills when you can just bark orders, right? Do as I say because I used to be one of you. And then there's the most delightful part of the industry, the clients. Oh, bless their hearts. These are the people who call in demolition and construction specialists, the experts, the professionals, the people who actually know how to bring a structure down safely and efficiently because clients can't do it themselves. But then, like some cosmic joke, the client suddenly decides they know best. They start micromanaging, telling us how to do the job they hired us for. Are you sure that's the best way to take down that wall? Oh, well, I don't know, Susan. I've only got 20 years of experience doing this. Maybe you, with your background in finance, could come down here and show us how it's all done. And while we're at it, let's talk about safety meetings. Those glorious times when we're all gathered together to review procedures in painstaking detail. Who usually leads these meetings? Well, it's often one of our esteemed academic managers. They'll stand up, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, with their PowerPoint presentations about safety protocols they've never actually had to follow. These meetings are meant to be informative, but they end up being more like an endurance test, a test to see how long you can sit there without rolling your eyes so hard you sprain something. They love to talk about efficiency too. Efficiency really is the new buzzword, isn't it? We need to streamline processes. Sure, let's do that. But you know what they mean by streamlining. It usually means cutting corners and expecting the crew to do twice the work in half the time, all while sticking to the letter of the law regarding health and safety. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for improving things, for being smarter, faster, better. But here's a revolutionary idea. How about we actually consult the people who do the job? You know, the people with years of hands-on experience who can tell you why theory A from your university textbook might not apply in the real world when you're dealing with shifting foundations or an unexpectedly brittle structure. The same people who have to adjust to on-the-fly conditions every single day because no two demolition sites are alike. It's this disconnect that gets me every time. We've got these pen-pushing professionals who think that knowledge and leadership can be reduced to a flowchart, a spreadsheet, and a few motivational speeches about team synergy. But out in the field, it's a different story. Out there, you need more than theory. You need instinct, experience, and a deep understanding of the tools, the materials, and the environment. And while we're at it, a little respect for those on the ground wouldn't hurt either, because at the end of the day, it's not the managers or the clients or the supervisors who are putting their necks on the line when something goes wrong. It's the crew, the team, the same crew that's often overlooked when the decisions are being made in some air-conditioned office. So here's an idea. Let's stop pretending that the only thing standing between us and perfect efficiency is a lack of university degrees. Let's start realizing that leadership in this industry isn't about barking orders, managing spreadsheets, or quoting from safety manuals. It's about actually knowing what you're doing, having been in the trenches, and maybe, just maybe, listening to the people who do the job every single day, because you never know, they might just know what they're talking about. There you are. That, you know, I take my inspiration where I can find it. We did a morning monologue a couple of days ago, which I then fed through an AI, and I'll be doing the same again today. And one of the things that it came up with was the term respect. You're all at work. Good morning to Jonathan Dowling over at Demo Boys over in the States. Good morning. Great of you to join us. You're paid, you know, assuming you're in employment, you're paid. You know, you get your wages on a fairly regular basis and stuff, and all of that kind of thing. Do you feel respected? Do you feel listened to? Do you feel seen and heard? And I realise I'm starting to sound like a big old liberal here, but would it really be that hard to demonstrate respect to those working? Because if you've clocked up 10, 20, 30, 40 years behind the levers of a machine, out in all weathers, you know, on site, whatever it might be, even if you weren't trying to, you will have learned a shit ton over the years. And absolutely, you know, you will be a mine of information. We always use this expression about demolition sites and construction sites. No two are the same. No, they're not. And that is part of the issue. But if you've been in the job for long enough, you at least have some basic understanding. You know, if you're taking down a 20-story tower block one day and then 10 years later you're taking down another 20-story tower block, they might be in different locations. They might be a different, you know, structural makeup. But you kind of know what's what. Would it not be a better idea, rather than trying to apply academic textbook learning to a subject, reach out to the people that have been there, done it, got the T-shirt, worn out the T-shirt, and then gone and got another T-shirt? Would that not make sense? Let's have a look. Jim Turner says on the same subject, far too many people being made up because of the cards and qualifications they have, not the skill or experience they've got. Now, here's a very good point. I'll get to Mick Norton in just a moment. We often say on this show, and you know, together amongst ourselves, that competence cards, regardless of level, aren't actually a proof of competence. That you know, they prove that you've sat an exam or you've passed a test or whatever it might be, but they are not an indication of competence. With that very much in mind, if somebody comes to you with, you know, pick a card, any card, they've got a card for all of these things, you know, be it different types of machine operation, different qualifications and everything else, that array of cards and all of that academic learning and all of the tests they passed does not necessarily make them a supervisor or a manager. It just proves that they've passed a lot of tests. It does. And I do think that one of the things that is overlooked so often is that ability to manage. I say manage, woman manage as well, but, you know, managing a team. Because like I've just said about demolition sites and construction sites, no two are the same. No two people are the same. You know, there will be some people within your team who need a constant toe up their arse to keep them firing on all cylinders. There are others for whom that the opposite is required. They need an arm around their shoulder. They need reassurance. They need encouragement. And as a manager of any kind, not necessarily just on a construction site, in a business environment, in a sporting environment, you need somebody that can do the arm around the shoulder, but can also do the kick up the arse as well, and apply it where it is best suited. Just because you've got a bunch of cards doesn't mean you have that skill at all. Now, let's have a look. Mick says, have an idea, you don't realise how many people will agree with you on this. Well, let me put it like this. I think, and I'm playing to the gallery somewhat here, you know how the industry works. I mean, specifically demolition. The demolition supposedly employs, in the UK, employs somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people. I am probably, there's probably 24,000 people out there that if they watch this, they'd go, yeah, he's right, He is a pillock, but he is right. But there's the other 1,000 who are in management roles who will be saying, this guy's an arsehole. How very dare he? That's the way it works, isn't it? Jim Turner says, I worked on a brilliant contracts manager. When he was on the tools, he wasn't the best or the busiest, but he worked his way up the ganger, then contracts manager, and that's where he excelled with brilliant man management because he has enough brains to surround himself with people that are better and more knowledgeable than him, and he's confident enough to ask our opinion, how we, the skilled, time-served tradesmen, think the work should be done. That's all I'm asking for. That right there is all I'm asking for. I mean, just imagine this in a domestic setting. So, and I realise a lot of you are very, very hands-on. I'm not. I'm virtually female when it comes to all things DIY. I'm fucking useless. I really am. But imagine, there is a leak. We suddenly have a leak in our house, and there's water pissing through the ceiling. And now I know full well that I'm not equipped to deal with that. So I get on the blower and I phone the plumber, and the plumber comes around. Now I am, I've done my homework. I've been online. I've done he's had Google reviews, and they all reckon he's pretty good. He's not ridiculously expensive. He's not like to rip you off, and he'll turn up when he says he's going to turn up. So I've done the homework, and I'm now saying to the guy, look, there's water pissing through the ceiling. Can you sort it out? And he says, yeah, I'll go and do that. Imagine if while he was doing that, I was stood over his shoulder. You sure you want to use that spanner? Is that the right one? Well, how about if we do it over there? I know you're doing this here, but what about over there? Well, imagine having the gall and the temerity to advise, a time-served plumber. I know squat. I've never done it, but I'm going to tell you how to do it. And yet that is so often the case. So often the case. And even down to things like scheduling. A demolition contractor, and this is the same throughout the industry, but I know demolition better than I know the other bits and pieces. So a demolition contractor, as part of their bid documents, the bid documentation and the bid for the job, is we are going to use this methodology, and it's going to cost this much, and it will take this long. And regardless what. If it's a big job, it'll take this long. If it's a smaller job, it'll take long. But let's just say it's a house. We can get that on the ground, cleared away in 4 days. Okay? That's how long it takes. And an experienced demolition estimator who has done many, many house demolitions over the years has done so many that he can tell you at a glance, yes, we will take it down in using this method. We'll salvage the bricks, we'll salvage this, we'll salvage that, and within 4 days, that will be a flat site and ready to go. And the client says, that's fantastic. Just what we like to hear. And you turn up on the first day of work and they say, we've only got 2 days. Can you get it sorted in 2 days? No. No, I can't. That's not why you employ experts. I always fall back on football. David Beckham, God love him, one of the greatest exponents of free kick taking the world has ever seen. The guy is an artist. Imagine you're 16, you just made the first team, and you walk up and you say to David Beckham, you sure you want to take it like that? Yes. Yes, I do want to take it like that because that's what I do. That is what I'm good at. That is the thing I've spent thousands of hours practicing. Oh, shit. With all these people that have multiple cars, they don't have experience necessary to the job at hand. No, it's so often the case. And let's face it, we could all collect qualifications. In my line of business, there are lots and lots of online courses. So I could get myself not a degree, but I could get myself a qualification in journalism or marketing or video production or video editing. I could have hundreds and hundreds of those. As far as I'm concerned, here's a video that I shot. It's pretty good, isn't it? And I know you can't do it because you're a construction company or a demolition company. So here's the skills that I've acquired over the years. You will pay me and I'll do this for you. And while I'm doing it, don't tell me how to do it. Just let me do it. And that's one of the things that I find very, very strange about the whole influencer market. I've had my issues with this over the past couple of years. There are now, let me think, 813 episodes of this show. Everybody knows by now what I look like, what I sound like, how I'm dressed, my accent, the fact that I swear occasionally, the fact that I can be quite outspoken. That's me. I couldn't pretend to be anything else because that's just me. So if you are an equipment manufacturer or a demolition company and you want me to do some work for you, know in advance what you're getting. Don't say, "Oh, like Mark Anthony, he's got a big audience. We'll get him along to do something. We'll get him to say some nice things about our excavator." And then before I start work, you are only going to say good things, aren't you? And, you are only going to, you're definitely not going to swear in the week before and the week after we've put a video out. No, that's not the way it works. You've employed me to do a job that I'm very, very good at. Now back the fuck off and let me get on with it. Going back to the fellow I know who was an expert witness, I asked him once why he asked for an opinion when he was preparing for a case. His answer was yes. His answer was, I'm sorry, I've not been involved in demolition, so I asked people who have been. That said, to me, if people can call themselves an expert witness, then they should have a greater knowledge than myself. But this bloke was giving evidence in a court. Yeah. And Mick, you've inadvertently hit on such a good point there. Okay. So I don't know how many demolition jobs you would have done over the years, Mick. Let's say 1,000, because it's a nice, easy number to remember. Let's say you were involved in 1,000 demolition projects. You know how demolition works. You also know how construction works. So, you sometimes you arrive, it might be a house building site, and we've got to dig foundations there. And you start digging, and something goes off, and actually there's services there. We've got to find a way around that. Demolition's the same. You arrive, you've got a plan in place. Something isn't quite right. Maybe the makeup of the building. Maybe you've encountered something, underground basement that you didn't know was there and stuff like that. So you have to roll with it and okay, well, we've hit a snag, but if we do it this way, that'll be fine. So that's all part of it. So if something goes tits up, which it does, if something goes tits up and that ends up in court, somebody will stand up with the idiot's guide to demolition that says, yes, on the demolition of a 4-story house of a 4-story building of concrete and steel construction with this kind of makeup and that kind of foundation, this is the way that you would do it. And this company has quite clearly done it in a different way because that was the way that needed to be done. So if you are insisting upon letter of the law, could we actually demolish anything anymore? Could we? It just blows my mind because you even things like controlling dust and controlling vibration. The law says that you must contain the dust within the site and everything else, which is fine, and I totally agree. And frankly, if I'm living next door and there's demolition going on, I don't particularly want my car covered in demolition debris. I don't want my smalls hanging out on the washing line being turned into a nice red colour because of the dust in the air. I don't want any of that. I don't want my children, I don't want my grandchildren breathing that in. Absolutely. But what about if it's a windy day after a long hot summer? But you know what? There's going to be some dust. I'm not happy about it. And I do think that the demolition contractor should do everything in their power to keep that trapped, dust suppression systems and everything else. But a windy day after a long hot summer, there's not just going to be dust on the demolition site. There's going to be dust blowing down the fucking road as well, because that's the nature of dust. That's what dust does. Don't forget, says Mick, don't forget that every expert started as a raw novice. Enjoy the journey. Yeah. But that, here's one of those things that I find strangest of all with all of this. If you are straight out of university and somebody has handed you a nice shiny new hard hat that says project manager on it and you're going to work, you will be likely on a probationary period. So, your employer will be watching you. Now, you've got qualifications and you're clearly a pretty smart guy or lady. You're clearly pretty smart, but you need to make sure that project runs as smoothly as possible. You basically want to be able to go back to your employer and look good. There's a shortcut to looking good. Ask the people that have done it before how it should be done. Because, for one thing, from a safety point of view, if you ask somebody that has lived and breathed demolition or construction, they're not going to recommend a method that puts them in danger, because nobody wants to do that. They will instantly and without a hesitation, they will recommend the most appropriate and the safest methodology that they possibly can. But more than that, they will be able to, we did exactly the same job as this 6 weeks ago down the road. So what we did there was this, and then we did that, and then we brought that, and then we did the thing. Project manager, after the project, it's delivered on time, on budget. He goes back looking like the blue-eyed boy or the blue-eyed girl, and everybody at the employer, the demolition contractor or the construction company thinks, well, we've employed a belter here. He's bloody mustard, this guy. And all he did was have a quick word with the guys behind the levers of the excavators, the guys pushing the broom around the site, and just had a very quick word and said, what do you reckon, lads? That's all it takes. Construction's insistence on preferring qualifications over experience has engineered its demise. I'd like that on a T-shirt. I would like that on a T-shirt. And listen, construction isn't unique. I caught the very, very end of this when I was on full-time on magazine journalism. I was one of the last to be employed by my old employer, Reed Business Publishing, without a degree. I'd been to college, and I could write. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could write a bit, but I didn't have a degree. I got in under the wire the very last minute, but literally the guy that came on after me had a degree. And he was very, very smart. I mean, funnily enough, he was very smart. His spelling and his grammar was bloody awful, but he was very, very smart. He had a very sort of academic way of studying a subject, and he would really get into the nitty-gritty of a subject. And I have to say, hats off to him, he was very, very good at that, even though because we were working on a weekly magazine, we didn't really have time for that kind of thing. But he was very, very good at that. But he had no common sense whatsoever. I mean, you literally had to hold the guy's hand all the time. That's just journalism. We were just beating keyboards. That's not the same as being out in the trenches in demolition and construction, where a wrong step or a lack of common sense could actually kill you or kill somebody else. Dan Cullen says, have a fantastic day, guys. Stay safe. I'll see you all on the morrow, going for my Seacosh medical this afternoon for future projects. Good luck with that, my friend. Mick says, by reading you gain knowledge, but you can only gain experience by actually doing something yourself. And it takes time to gain experience, but you can read a book in a couple of days. So, oddly enough, over lunch yesterday, we were talking about hobbies. I don't know how we got onto it, but we were talking about hobbies. And my hobby, as you well know, is fishing. I could read every fishing book that has ever been printed. And there's no guarantee that I would understand how to catch a fish or that I would actually catch a fish. I learned to catch fish, sat beside somebody who was actually very good at catching fish. And to extend that, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, I found myself in New Orleans one Christmas, many, many moons ago. And on Christmas Eve, me and the friends that we were with, we decided to go off to the New Orleans Superdome to see the New Orleans Saints playing American football against the San Francisco 49ers. The detail was unnecessary, but I'll tell you anyway. So 4 Brits went to watch American football on Christmas Eve many, many moons ago. And, I'd seen it on the TV. I didn't really know too much about what was going on. But I was sat next to an American, no great surprise, because I was in America. And he picked up on my accent. And he said, oh, do you know American football? I said, I haven't got a bloody clue. Not a clue. And an American football match, because there's a lot of stopping and starting and halftime breaks and stuff, the whole thing lasted for about 4.5 hours. And for 4.5 hours, he sat beside me. The reason that's happened is because of this, and this is a first down, and he basically taught me the ins and outs. I left. I'm not an expert, but to this day, I still follow and fully understand a game of American football because somebody sat beside me, somebody who really knew their shit, sat beside of me and instructed me on what it was. I could have read every book about American football that's ever been written, and I wouldn't have gained that knowledge. So, back to Mick, I agree. Jim Turner says, yes, Mick, they should enjoy the journey. A journey that helps them pick up relevant knowledge along the way. But the trend nowadays is to take a shortcut to the top. And that makes some management clueless when the job deviates from the plan. Is that one of our issues? Have we found ourselves in this situation because we've decided that those with academic degrees are definitely a benefit to demolition and construction? Or are we looking at it that those with academic degrees and qualifications are the type of people that should be telling those without what to do? A bit like the armed forces. I know nothing about the armed forces. I've never been, I've never served, never would, too much of a coward. But, a time-served infantryman, gun in hand and everything else, has got an intrinsic understanding of what to do, what not to do in order to not get shot between the eyes. Just because somebody is a bit posher or is a bit more middle or better still upper class doesn't necessarily make them the right person to tell that guy what to do, does it? As I say, I don't think it matters the reason that we've ended up in this situation. And I'm certainly in the field of journalism. I think one of the issues that we had there, I think there was such a high level of people that were trying to be journalists. It was the YouTuber's job back in the day. Everybody wanted to be a journalist, and everybody that could write a sentence decided they were going to be a journalist. So there was a lot of people that wanted to come into the industry. And I think at the time it was, if that's the case, if we've got this long queue of people that are willing to come and be part of this industry, then we can just be very, very discerning. So not just an enthusiasm for journalism. We want somebody with an enthusiasm and a qualification. Good morning to MB Crusher. Just joined us over on Instagram. Be seeing you very soon. The only book I've read about fishing was Jaws. Not a good fishing book, that, I've got to be said. The Old Man of the Sea, Ernest Hemingway. Now, that's a fishing book. Mick says, glad you do. I'm still trying to work out Aussie rules. Yeah, Aussie rules. Aussie rules is a fight with a ball, isn't it? I don't get that at all. But yes, absolutely. 100. Listen, I am still one of the great joys of my last trip to Las Vegas Pretty much all of the hotels have what they refer to as a sports bar. So hundreds of TV screens about the place showing basketball and baseball, but lots and lots of American football. And I will sit there and watch, a nice root beer and a burger, bowl of chips, and American football. I'm a happy bunny, and I'll do that for many hours. Mick says, never trusted many Ruperts when I was in. Yeah, well, there you are, Ruperts. Should we adopt that as our? Has anybody encountered somebody called Rupert on a demolition or construction site? I bet someone has, and you already know what they're like, don't you? Yeah, Ruperts. We are governed by Ruperts. Yeah. Okay, people, that's me ranting done and dusted. That's an hour and a half. I think that's probably enough. What I would do, as is becoming the norm now, I'm going to stop the show. I'm going to bung this bit of the show through our AI, and it will spit out a recap podcast that you can listen to see if it made any sense whatsoever. I'll be interested to see. Chris Ford says, yeah, I knew a Rupert who drove a digger. Did you really? I bet he was the black sheep of the family. Either that or the people that spawned young Rupert had aspirations. I can't imagine anybody from where I grew up ever being called Rupert. Jim Turner says, I had a dog called Rupert. Did you not like it? The hound needs to sharpen his teeth for tonight, and I need to put mine in safe. Put mine in. Stay safe, fellas. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mick. Have a good day, my friend. Mick Norton says, Royal Engineers Bomb Disposal have an uncanny method of ensuring direct entry academics always shut up and listen. Do they? Yeah, one big bang, I would imagine, would make you take a bit of a step back, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay, people, off, go do your thing. I'll be back tomorrow with more of the same. I don't know what I'm going to be babbling on about tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll find something. And yes, we've got lots more videos to show you, probably more from JCB if Fred has pulled his finger out and done his bit, but I've got lots more besides. So join us again tomorrow if you possibly can. I'll be back 10 o'clock as per usual. Just one very quick thing, because Gary Muirhead reminded me, our Christmas story will go on pre-sale next week. We'll actually air it properly on the 31st for Halloween, but it will be going out and made available next week. So keep an eye out for that. And yes, that's all I've got for you today. I'll see you on the morrow. Till then, everybody have a fantastic day. Thank you for your company. Thank you for your input. Go and say hello to Rupert for me, would you? Thank you.